All right, today we are diving into a story that is it's incredible. It's got everything: genius, a bitter rivalry, and a single secret photograph that literally changed how we understand life itself. And this is not your high school science lesson, trust me. This is a high stakes drama about uncovering the blueprint for all of humanity.
So here's the big question we're going to tackle. How did a hidden photograph, and a pretty nasty rivalry, by the way, lead to what is arguably the single greatest discovery of the 20th century? We're going to see how this intense race for knowledge became this nail-biting drama, and it all came down to one hidden clue. A clue whose legacy, believe me, affects every single one of us, every single day.
Okay, let's set the scene. Picture it. It's the early 1950s. Scientists are pretty sure this molecule, DNA, holds the keys to the kingdom, the blueprint for life. But there was a huge problem. Nobody knew what it looked like. I mean, what was its shape? Figuring out its 3D structure, that was the Nobel Prize, the whole shebang, and you better believe the race was on.
And this race really boiled down to two major teams, both in the UK. Over at Cambridge University, you've got James Watson and Francis Crick. These guys were the theorists, the big thinkers. Their whole game was building these physical models, almost like playing with Legos, trying to guess the right shape. Then, over at King's College in London, you had Rosalind Franklin and Maurice Wilkins. Their approach was completely different. They were all about the grind, the meticulous experiments, getting hard data. So you have these two totally different ways of thinking, both chasing the same epic prize.
So while Watson and Crick are over in Cambridge, building their models and spitballing ideas, the real nitty-gritty work, the stuff that would actually solve the puzzle, was happening at King's College. And this is where Rosalind Franklin steps into the spotlight. Her expertise is about to become the absolute key to this whole story.
Now, Franklin was an absolute master of this incredibly complex technique called X-ray crystallography. It sounds complicated, but here's the basic idea. You take a molecule, you crystallize it, and then you shoot X-rays at it. The X-rays bounce off the atoms and create the shadow pattern on a piece of film. It's like a ghostly fingerprint of the molecule. And if you know how to read that pattern, and that is a huge if, you can figure out the molecule's shape. And let me be clear, Rosalind Franklin was one of the best in the world at this.
So, for months and months, Franklin and her graduate student just worked tirelessly, refining their techniques. And then it happened. In May 1952, they captured it. One image, one single, beautiful, clear image that held the answer everyone was looking for.
That image became known as Photo 51. And look, to you or me, it might just look like a blurry X. But to an expert like Franklin, it was a revelation. That distinct cross-like pattern, it practically screamed helix. It was the shadow of a spiral staircase. This wasn't a theory anymore. This was the first piece of hard, photographic evidence showing what DNA's basic shape really was.
But this is where the story takes a critical, fateful turn. See, Franklin was a scientist. She was cautious, she was meticulous. She knew Photo 51 was a bombshell, no question. But she wasn't ready to run out and publish, not yet. She wanted more data to back it up, to make her case completely airtight. And that decision, that scientific rigor, well, it would end up having massive consequences.
And it wasn't just the picture. From her data, Franklin also calculated some absolutely critical measurements. First up, the diameter of the DNA molecule. She figured out it was exactly 2 nanometers wide. Now, why does that matter? Well, if you're building a physical model, you have to know how wide to make it. This number was a crucial piece of the puzzle.
And there was another one. She also figured out the distance between each of the chemical rungs on the DNA ladder, 0.34 nanometers. So now think about it. You've got the width, and you've got the height of each step. You basically have the exact architectural plans to build the spiral staircase. And here's the most important part. None of this was published. It was all sitting in her lab notes.
Okay, so this is where we get to the real climax of the story. You have all of Franklin's careful, groundbreaking work on one side, and you have Watson and Crick's relentless ambition on the other, and they are about to collide in a moment of pure scientific drama.
This is the moment that changes the course of science history. In early 1953, Maurice Wilkins, Franklin's colleague at King's College, shows James Watson Photo 51. And the crucial part is he did it without her permission, without her even knowing. For Watson, seeing that X pattern, it was like being handed the key to the entire mystery. It was the aha moment.
I mean, seeing that photo was like being shown the answers to the test before you even take it. And you can see on this timeline just how ridiculously fast things moved after that. In January, Watson sees the photo and gets her data. By the end of February, just weeks later, he and Crick had built their final correct model of the double helix. Armed with her picture and her exact measurements, they solved the puzzle. It was an absolute sprint to the finish line.
And to really get a sense of how big this was, just listen to what happened on February 28th. Francis Crick literally bursts into their local pub in Cambridge and announces to everyone there, "We have found the secret of life." And you know what? He wasn't exaggerating, not one bit.
So the discovery is made. Case closed, right? Well, not so fast. The story was far from over, because what came next was a really complicated legacy of fame, glory, and for a long, long time, a complete overlooking of the one person whose work made it all possible. All right, the aftermath it's messy. If you look at this table, you'll see that when the discovery was published in the journal Nature back in 1953, they actually published 3 papers side by side, one from Watson and Crick, one from Wilkins' team, and one from Franklin and her student. So at the time, her data was right there. But fast forward to 1962, when the Nobel Prize is awarded. The winners, Watson, Crick, and Wilkins. No mention of Rosalind Franklin. So what happened? Why was she left out? The heartbreaking reason is that Rosalind Franklin had died of cancer in 1958, just 4 years before the prize was given out. And the Nobel Prize has a strict rule. It isn't awarded posthumously to someone who has already passed away. Because of that rule, her absolutely essential role in one of the greatest discoveries ever, it was basically written out of the popular story for decades. But okay, let's pull back from the controversy for a minute and just talk about the impact. Because figuring out the double helix didn't just win a Nobel Prize, it completely rewrote the future of humanity. It changed everything. I mean, think about it. This one discovery unlocked the door to so much. Suddenly, we understood how traits are passed down from parents to children. We could find the specific tiny mutations in our DNA that cause terrible diseases. Every time you hear about DNA fingerprinting on a crime show, that's because of this. The massive Human Genome Project, this was the starting point. The modern gene therapies and biotechnologies that are saving lives right now, it all starts here with the double helix. So, when you look at the whole picture, the discovery of DNA structure wasn't some clean, simple eureka moment in a lab. It was a messy, complicated, very human story. It absolutely needed the bold, brilliant, theoretical leaps of Watson and Crick, but it was completely 100% impossible without the patient, precise, and groundbreaking experimental work of Rosalind Franklin. Which brings us back to our first question, but maybe with a new perspective. When we look back at this incredible story, what do we really see? Is it a story of genius, a story of rivalry, or is it, at its heart, a story of injustice? Maybe the truth is that it's all of those things, all tangled up together, just like the molecule they were all racing to find.